Okay, we are on to the next fine-tuning and learning no more about tools on how to do that. And this is the purpose of these videos, are to demonstrate the tools in action, and hopefully this will be helpful. So let's move forward. So here we are, and which came out really nice, really striking. Symmetry, as we can see, which is great. The only thing that we're missing here that we want to do is just changing up some of the design composition and working with the edges. Big one that just shouts out right away is right here. Let me get my cursor to be bigger. Right here. So you can tell it's cut off. So the important thing about anything in Photoshop is to make things not look like Photoshop. That's the critical component, which is odd, but that is what it's supposed to do. So you're supposed to make it look as if it was an actual real photograph, as it was in Eric Johansson's work in hyperrealism. So right away, I can see some things over here that I could use to place there. So let's do that right away. Let me open up the layers. So that's this is where it's really important to get a sense of, once you feel the composition is done, how to move this through. So I'm going to duplicate. Actually, I don't have to duplicate this because I'm on the layer, and I'm going to use my lasso. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of this edge here. And then I come up here to Edit, Copy, Paste Special. And it does create another layer, as you can see. So you can take that with the Move tool and move this now over here. So let's zoom in. Zooming is always very good. And on this situation, we need to flip it, for one thing. Let's get Transform, Flip Horizontally, which is better. And now we're going to be scaling this down. Remember, we can scale down. It's very difficult if you scale up, but you can use those filters as we did before. And we can actually distort this because it is just a small part, but it's got to be that width that we see here. And let's see what happens on this. So it's a little better. Let's see the width of the distance. Using the ruler, we're about this distance. So we could bring it in a little bit more, a little tighter, as such, like this. Okay. And this has, it looks like it is thin with a transparency. So be careful about getting the transparencies. They're great when we need them here, which is what we're going to do now. So there's a couple of things that we can do. The one thing we did in the last video that I learned, and I'm so happy that it's here, which is why, new versions are advantageous because of the new tools that they did not have before. So for instance, I'll show you, once I create enough of this, we're going to be able to merge these even though all the other layers are on. So that's what we're going to do. So right now, what I want to try to do is I want to try to move this, the white space underneath it, which is here, which is, you can see the line is right there. So you could actually go to a brush, and we'll do more brushes each week. Not each week, but brushes every week, but we will do more tools each week as we continue going through assignments. So let's go to brushes. So we have brushes and we have brush settings. So brush settings have quite a bit of different brushes, as you can see here, that you can be able to use. So I can use this, and you see you can do the spacing and get it to be, even design your own brushes, which is really exciting. And that brush should now be in my brush settings here, which will be saved with the document. So whenever you click one of the brushes, it will come up to be in there. So now what I want to do is bring the brush down, be on this layer, and then I want the smudge tool. Still good old smudge tool. And we'll see what I can do. And see, it's still not giving me, see, how you test your brushes is a good way is to simply take a color. There you see it right there. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. Now I can go back to that brush here. And let's see there's a smoothing. Wet edges, no, let's see here. Size, not really what we want to do. Hardness doesn't really give an option. Let's bring it a little bit tighter. There we go. And it's not really round. So that's another component, is the roundness of something with the brushes. So let's now go back and try to use, now you could do some painting. So if I did, again, you can come up here with the eyedropper, grab a couple of colors, which is here, and back to the brush, test it out, right? And then of course, Control Z. And then you can also just paint. You know, I'm not brushing, I'm literally clicking so that it has a better edge. Let's view this out, fit on screen. It's getting there, not perfect, but it's not too bad on there. So you can, you know, again, continue using the brush to get the highlight underneath the colors, getting it more out, or again, using the brush as you had from before. You see this, I can move this around and back to the brush, underneath, stay underneath. Want to use I'm on multiply, see? I was like, why is this doing this? Do it normal. Now you see, normal, and let's take the flow off. And now now you can also push with this brush. Let's move in again, 100% on here. This is a very light brush, as you can see. And now I can bring this down, and I can also use the smudge, get it really small, and just paint it through. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is to get, and you can change up the colors. And you can also, don't forget, you can also duplicate that first layer with Alt and make another sort of branch. And then you can erase it, don't forget, erase what you don't want. So you often go back and forth between these things. Is this soft? Yeah. So then I can delete and erase some things that I, don't want, as you can see. And again, always pulling back out to see how it's working. And it has a lot of that shadow. So I would bring in, I would come over here, back to the main layer, and bring up a little bit of this color, which I can see is missing. And again, good old copy, paste and special, place in special in place, paste in place. And now you see I'm going to bring this down. Let's turn this on and off. There we go. You see, now I've got this down a little bit more and not so shadowy. Now, in critiquing something like this, which is what's going through, it's going through the art director, it's going through your supervisor, it's going through the client, it's going through everything. I'm going to zoom out of this a little bit more just to show you. And the way to do that, you can use the zoom key and you can mouse down or mouse in and so forth. So this tree actually is kind of hanging over a whole lot when you kind of look at it as I was final touching that cutoff edge. So you might want to, now at this point, this will go back to what I was showing you, so all of these layers that we have here now, we're turning that one off, is, let me delete that because we don't want that. All these layers that we are using up here for that little part of the tree, what we found is if you highlight this, highlight the layers that you want to merge. Normally what we used to have to do, we'd have to turn all the layers off, and then we would use merge visible over here on the top of this layer, the layer window. But now they have, if you highlight the layers that you want to merge visible, you can come down here to, you can right click, and now you can say merge visible, or I'm sorry, not merge visible. I don't think merge visible is not what I want. No, see, that's not what we want. It was the putting it into a folder, right click. That was it, merge group. That was what we did. Now you see, that was a new tool for me and I discovered it, but of course I didn't remember it, but I knew that you could do it. And it was like, what was the one to do that? So it's important to know that critical thinking. So it's putting the selected layers into a folder and then right clicking to see what properties of the folder could this do. And then that's merge the group. Now the merge the group, here, there's something that's going on here that might be with the modes. So let's see. Normal, normal, normal. You have a drop shadow. That's interesting. That might be part of the problem. Let's take that away. I think that's exactly the problem. We can apply it again on the after effect. So let's do this again now. Highlight this, right click, merge group. Yeah, that was the problem. It had the drop shadow on it. So now I can reapply the drop shadow as it was before, which we will do. But right now we want to see if this tree is a little too extended too much. So I'm going to give a version and send this back to the designer. So I'm going to duplicate this, turn this off just by the eyeball. I'm going to lock it so I visibly can see that it's one of the duplicates. And what I'm going to do now is go back to those brushes. And that was a window. The brush is here. And I want to get a brush that has a little bit more teeth on it, as they say, because I want to use it as the eraser. So a lot of these are grass. Grass is always very good. So we'll use grass, and then you can go to the brush settings, which is here. And that should do a good job in cleaning up, which is what I want to do. So let's do that. Let's go to our brush. Close this up. This is locked, as you can see. So now I'm on the group. Let's get this to be big, the brush. Sometimes, there we go. Sometimes the brush you can't see because of the caps lock. Be sure about that. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of what I want, and I'm just gonna give it a haircut, literally, because this side is really nice, but this is a little too extended. So let's get the eraser. I'm gonna do first the big chunks, and you notice I lose my brush, right? So back to the brush, and back to the modes up here to clear, just like we did in the path tool. So let's see what this is going to give us. Clear. I'm not sure why clear is not working here. So let's zoom in. And let's be sure it's there. Yep, it is there. Let's go back to clear, opacity clear, and to the brush. There we go. Brush is a little totally buggy. You see how buggy it is? Yeah. Ah, there we go. This is not the brush we want to use because it has a splatter to it. And I'll show you what I mean on that. See the splattering. It's not just one brush, one of these. Let me see the spacing. There. You see that's the splattering on that. We want just one of these. It's interesting. So let's go find another one that we can fine tune that doesn't have that. And on the brush libraries, what we want to see, come over here, legacy brushes. So we can restore the legacy brushes. And down here, they pretty much are letting me scale this. And we don't want the scattering, so let's get rid of that. And let's find the brush we need that will give us the brush that we want. So there are a lot, as you can see, quite a bit. And you can open them up. Special effects brush. There's one brush that we used to use all the time. And it should have been under the special ones. It's actually one leaf of a grass. And it's great because it's the leaf that you want. Here's some fall finishes on here. Basic brushes, no. And now we'll get into the painting. As you can see, this is where you can actually be painting with Photoshop, which is quite amazing. And these are all the same. So let's come back up here to calligraphy. Calligraphy is always a good one to chisel. But it really should be under the special effects. So let's go back to there. And the one brush, the cross-hatching one. And let's bring this bigger. There we go. So you see the different effects that they will give you. Let's see here. Leaf and tilt. Not really. So the one brush I'm looking for, which has been here since day one, and why they have not put this in there, let's see. There we have the general brushes, the dry media brushes, the wet media brushes. The special effects was always the one, and the legacy one, here we go. This is getting a little better. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, welcome to brushes, right? So brushes can become, and the way to test them out is you want to be, like right now I'm in clear. Let's go to normal just to see what it paints. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for a brush that's gonna chisel away at the leaves to make it be what we want it to be. So we want to go back to clear. And we want to be sure we're on the right layer. And now I could easily take the lasso. And remember what the lasso does with the feather. Picking up the feather, and that might have been what happened before. But let's, because my feather was up, let's just make feather to be 10. And if you remember what feather does is it softens the edge of the lasso. So zooming out, this is when you do want to zoom out. And we're just wanting to cut a little bit under there, and we can hit delete. But better yet is to hit copy, paste in place. So if I want to bring back something, I can. So I can come back over here, hover again, get those marching ants. And you see now that's the feather on there. Let's just get 0. And again, hover over the thumbnail, control key down, click. There is the marching ants that did have the feather, and that's why it is doing that. So we can, again, click, hover, and come back to this layer, turn this one off, and delete. So now you see a lot of some of the things are there, so we'll just take the eraser, get rid of those areas that are not serving us, right? And you can kind of go in a little bit more. But you see, I don't have those lovely edges anymore like we have over here. So I would have to bring that back. But zooming out with the Z key, you can see how I've gotten the tree not to be having that hanging over situation, which is a little odd and a little off balance. So let's bring this now a little bit more closer and a little bit further onto the earth, making sure our edges are good. And that's pretty good. And so again, when you place something, do you place it inside the globe? And this is how you would do this. You would turn this off. And you would once again, we'll do soft edge 5. We'll do 5. And we just kind of want to grab, let's see here. Yeah, we want to grab a little bit of what the tree is sinking into. Trees come from the ground. So if you're simulating or giving the illusion that this is the ground, which is the globe, you need a lot of what's around it. So I'm just going to grab a lot here as such. And I need to go to the planet, which is here, and do the copy paste. Copy. And now this you do need paste in place. Okay. And then I bring it up above the tree. And it is a duplication, so that's why it's making it brighter. And now I use the eraser to erase, right, the tree. How much of a tree do I want to have of being able to, and actually that brush that we did have, this one, you can also erase with that. So now you see we're really beginning to get into things that are beginning to look like they are really hyperrealism. Don't know where the tree ends, so you can kind of turn on and off what you have here. So this is where we're going to be going. And again, you can make it so that it's not so just plopped on top. You've got to blend in so that it feels like it's sinking and coming in from the ground. And yes, you can do some things that are photographic or digital imaging or digital painting, as they may call, because you could blend all of these things. And so that, again, you can come over here, which is under the smudge tool, which is there is a blur tool. And you have a certain strength, so you can kind of blend a little bit if you don't want it to be too painterly. But you do want it to feel like it's in there. So now let's go back to fit in screen. And again, you can blur this again as well with the blur tool and the strength. And you can also erase, don't forget. The eraser is keeping my brush. I was hoping it would do that. So yes, there you have the brush. There we go. And again, zooming in to check how much we like it. Back to the blur to give it a rough sort of situation, as if it was dirt bearing the tree. coming along. I'm much better than where we had, this one was extended. So that was the change there. So I'm going to save this. So a couple of things. Absolutely, it would be good to touch up the leaves here, but I'll leave that for the designer because that's a good thing to really learn to do that. Again, you can be picking up here. So for any of the final touches, that's a good thing I would recommend for the designer to do. The other component was seeing the recommendation was some copy to be here because it was what we always call dead space when this was not here before on the initial first draft. So on this one here, I'm trying to grab it. It might be linked. Let's see here. On this one, nope, this one. I'm not feeling, let's see here, is it? No, there we go, let's turn this off. Now I can probably grab it. There we go. Okay, so what I wanted to do was on here was really to, again, one of the things that's most difficult in this is not just learning the tools, but learning how to design. So we had commented about the example that is here. Let me go to that. Which is over on this one. I think we have it. Is it here? Yeah, right here. Sorry. So, so many windows, right? Here is the hook as far as a particular word and like damage prevention and then text, right? So again, make an impact, then text. So this is the eye-catching component. So going back to that aspect, let's go back to here. We've got the important information about the conference, which is great. You could put the year. That is important because a lot of people buy posters every year at a conference and frame it. So that would be in something. And I don't have your layer, so I would definitely do that. Let's see if it will pick up 20, 21, right? And sometimes you need to have signatures like that. But let's keep it at that. And so now gathering early childhood educators from around the globe to connect, collaborate, and learn together. Join us virtually. So join us virtually. You could say connect and collaborate, but join us virtually is important to do that. And so that link where you're giving them the URL would do that. So I would, let me see if I can pick this up. Yep. I would pick this up. Where are you? T, here we go. And nope, made another one. Don't want to do that. Control Z. And sometimes Control Z, once you lay a text down, it doesn't delete it, which to me is always a bit of a nuisance. So right here, it looks like it might be linked on here, but it is a flat. So I'm not sure of the font on this. So I'm just going to go with a font here. It's good to, it looks like it's an Arial. This one is what it looks like it was before. Let's bring up the window for type. Character, I'm sorry. Character is around here somewhere. Here it is. And let's bring this to, looks like it's an Arial of some sort. Probably bold. Yep. And let's do join us. I like that text the way it is. Join us virtually. And you could use the small, let's try the smaller versus the capital. Might be better capital. Join us virtually, exclamation point. And again, we can bring this, select all, bring it to be tighter together. As such, too tight. And let's bring it down. And now you can go to 50. 40. Too much. 50. Better. Okay. And we certainly could come down in size. And then again, of course, we've got to change this a little closer. And just have this, and it's 2 L's. Always got to watch that typos, which is why you always want to be sure that you have the link layer before you rasterize it. So now that might be here, but I don't see that. So just be sure to always duplicate the link. I'm sorry, not duplicate the link, duplicate the layer when you have type, because of just what I'm doing right now. You rasterize it, which is great, because sending it to someone could be losing the font. So now you see what's important to understand is I can erase this. Let's get to where it is, which is right here. So I'll erase this and caps off. Don't want that brush. Back to the traditional brush. And we don't want it to be soft and so forth. So we're good. Click away from that, close that window, and now we can just get this to be erased. Okay. Now, because I can't do this, I do want to comment about this. So let's since I've got the right font, let me make a new layer that's smaller. White is good, and I'm just going to copy gathering early childhood educators from around the globe to connect. So you can even do this to connect, collaborate, and learn together. So you're changing things up, so it's not just a chunk of the same thing. You're giving it a variety so that you can catch the eye and it's easy to read. So sometimes when things look too lengthy or just not presented in an interesting design way, people literally will not be reading it. So, and then you can't get it too busy that it's too confusing to read. So now what we're going to do is get this to be a little bit more together. Gathering early childhood educators. Early childhood. Now you centered that early, so we can do that. Let's try that. Keeping it up, early educators from around the globe. And let's get to connect, collaborate, and learn together. And we got a typo here. Oh, it's lowercase. Gathering early. So this is a little bit centered. Let's see what it looks like centered. Get this up here. Why is this not going up there? Let's bring this over. here. Let's turn this off for a second. Yeah. Let's get this where we want it to be. To collect. There we go. There we are. And learn together. So now, here we have this. And the part, we do need to have a shadow behind it. So again, the layer is here, layer style, drop shadow. To get that color, we'll do the, and you can choose again, don't forget, you can choose from the actual source, which is good. And let's get this a little darker. Whoops, close that. Get this a little darker. And I would even throw a little bit more blue into the picture, so it's not so muddy. So sometimes black can get too dark and gray. And again, don't forget, if I go 100%, don't forget your modes that you can see if there's any change going through, as you can see, right? Even a little brighter possibly, but we still don't see the gathering, so that's a problem. So we'll keep this keep it more dark, or we can move this. Let's do that. We can get this here, and then we could also not have it centered. I tend to do things to the left first, as such, so that we have a little bit of a good spacing here. There, here's okay. And then on this one, it's also, whoops, it's also on here so that we could have this above this. And now this is the one that could use it. And so you see we're going right to the right, a little off. It's not dead centered. And let's get this to be with our black shadow, our shadow on this one. On virtually, I think it is. Which one is it? Join us. Here we go. Let me turn this off. And let's apply the layer. Drop shadow. And this is, let's get this to be up here. And you can see where you want to put the drop shadow. Let's get this to be the darker color again. Take the dodge off. There we go. And not too muddy. Let's grab it right from around the color that exists, such as that. Say okay. Say okay. Much better. Not so dirty. Has a little bit of the color on that. And again, you can, don't forget, lower the opacity. And you also can soften it. So let's see what that would be doing. Let's take the opacity. Double click up here, bring the opacity down. But see, it brings down the whole one, which is what we don't want it to do. Now that should not be doing that. That's, you know why that's doing that? Is because I don't have it selected. I'm doing it for the whole layer. You want to go to your drop shadow layer. That is why it was changing it for all of them. And so be careful what you select when you see those check boxes to be selecting. So you see, I'm just sort of bringing it down so it's not too dark on this. So now let's zoom out. Again, whoops, Z key, zoom it out. So you see now, you really begin to see how this has joined us virtually, which is kind of fun because it makes life easy. And then we have also the terminology of changing up the font so that it's not the whole, how can I say, it doesn't have the same look and feel for all of the block of information. You're changing things up so that you're helping the eye catch what it needs to catch. Now, sometimes you often can take the bold off of this. Let's just do narrow. And you see now we're kind of changing things a little bit. We may not want that. So let's just go to regular, deselect. And now you see we're getting some contrast here. We're getting some push and pull, a variation, which is what I was going to say up here. All of this down here looks great as far as the book is concerned, and the shadow looks lovely. The one thing I would say too is with this tree, I would definitely come up here to image, adjust. I do this at the very end, levels, and let's push this to be a little bit more contrasty. And bring the brighten up, because it's the tree of life in some way, and say okay. And so now that just makes it be much more brilliant as it is. And so let's, again, Z key, pull it back, brightens it up a little bit, which is good. And then on here, again, we have the type that's sort of laying down all the same. And this is a good link for it to be, it's a good catch on this. But November 6th is the most important thing to remember. So you probably would change this up. And these decisions get made after the artwork is done. Let's bring this up. And then the URL, so that the question is, you know, it's a conference, when is it, right? That's the important thing. And then, okay, now I know where to go. The date is good, so I'm bringing that up. Now, again, we have that drop layer. So let's just bring that drop layer that we had before from this one, Alt key down, drag and drop. And there it gives us a little bit of visibility. So again, we could double click this. We are on the drop shadow, and it should not change it for the other one. That was the bug on the last one. So on here, I'm going to make it a little bit stronger. Not so blurry. So you can pull these back. Let's get the distance. That is one way to do it, so that, you know, this kind of is floating, so that's okay. But here I just popped the edge without the fuzziness to stand it apart. So that's the important component in that. Okay, looking good. End of this one. So we're on to the next one.